Hi everyone, today we're going to make a hoof out of epoxy. I'm just going to make one for now so I can see how this works out and I can adjust my methods if need be. I drew her leg from the front and the side as well as two versions of her foot, so I can see where I need to put all the parts and the ornaments and the fluff and whatever. So you can see I want to go either for a hoof with a heel attached, or just go for the entire foot being a hoof. After some deliberation, I thought it might be tricky to get the heel done, so I decided to go for the version where the entire foot is a hoof instead. And let's get started! So here we got our epoxy. I've never worked with it before, but I heard good things about it, and the best thing is you don't have to bake it. You just leave it out to dry for like 24 hours. And the time span you have to actually work on it is between 1 and 3 hours, so that's more than enough to get done whatever you need to do. There's a warning on the epoxy that says it couldn't cause skin irritations, and thus recommends using nitrile gloves. I do have a set of nitrile gloves, but I do use them for spraying the sealant onto the doll, and I don't really have a lot of control in them because they're kind of bulky and rigid, so I'll instead go with latex throwaway gloves. Some people use epoxy without wearing any gloves. I would not recommend it given the warning on the package, so maybe just at least take some, cheap drugstore latex gloves that you just throw away once you're done. Make sure that you use two separate tools to take out the epoxy of each bucket, so you don't, get stuff from one tool into the other bucket, because this is gonna trigger the reaction that the epoxy has if you combine the two compounds. So make sure to either use the right hand for the right bucket, the left hand for the left bucket, or have two spoons or whatever you want to use. And also make sure that you don't necessarily use a fork or a knife that you're going to use later to eat something. So just be as safe as possible. Next we're going to mix the epoxy in equal parts. Take about the same amount from each bucket and mix them together for about 1 to 2 minutes. Make sure they're really well mixed and the color is evenly distributed, so the reaction is also evenly distributed and you don't end up with small parts just refusing to dry. So let's get started. Once I decided which sketch I wanted to go with, I kept it next to me so I could refer to it anytime I was getting lost or confused. And first of all, what I did is I took a major part of epoxy after I had mixed it, and I just tried to fill the entire space between the heel and the tip of her toes with epoxy. This later turned out to be a bit of a problem. You can see epoxy is relatively soft and relatively easy to shape. And you can, if you mix it with water, just a little bit of water, you can easily, make a really smooth transition between the plastic and the epoxy itself. However, the hoof was getting pretty large, so I had problems keeping everything in shape while still, adding new stuff and molding it. So it would have probably been better to either work in layers, for which I had no patience, but if you do have the patience, that would probably be a better idea. So you have one layer solid and you can easily add another layer. But keep in mind that epoxy takes roughly 24 hours to dry, so that will take a lot of patience and it will probably take you several days to, layer everything properly. Since I needed a rather quick solution, I just went ahead and added the entire epoxy lump to her foot and shaped out the hoof. However, this was proving more and more tricky the more stuff I added, so I decided at some point that I'm just gonna leave it the way it is, let it dry out, and anything else like fur, ruffles, whatever, I'll add later once this is dried, and I will also correct any mistakes I made. So I decided that for the other foot, which I'll hopefully get to look at least remotely similar to the first one, I will try to use a wire construction. However, for this purpose, I had to drill into the doll's leg, and I didn't have an appropriate drill, so I checked on Amazon. They're selling for 16 euros, for instance. You can get an electrical drill that also serves as a sanding tool, which is a cool coincidence because I was, looking for sanding paper, but I was not sure which one to get and which one is a good fit. So now with this little bugger, I get everything in one place. It should be coming in the next few days, and I will absolutely give you a review of this thing and how my plan panned out. But let's get back to the foot that we're currently dealing with. You can see that I'm trying to apply more and more layers, so to speak, without actually letting it dry in between. I'm occasionally standing down the foot to check if it could actually be standing on its own. And then at first I was thinking I'll just carve in the parting of the hooves. But then I decided otherwise, and I made little triangular shapes that I just stuck on top of it to give it a little more room to the front as well and make it look like a little bit longer and a little bit more massive. And I also applied some sort of ring structure around them because I want the fur to slightly overgrow the hooves just a little bit. So I added this ring to kind of separate the hoof part from anything above it. I also started moving up the epoxy the entire leg. I didn't finish this because I just didn't mix enough epoxy, but that's not a problem since I can just do that later once this is all dried, because right now I don't want to mess with it too much anymore so I don't destroy the base that I already have. But like I said, for the other foot I will likely take a slightly different approach. Even though this kind of worked out, it's still hard to, reproduce this result without any kind of plan. So stay tuned for the other hoof that I'll hopefully do soon, and I'll let you know how this turns out. Thank you very much, and bye bye!